Ah, it's me. Yeah, another nice day. One more anyway. So I thought I talked last night, James, idiot savant, or something like that. Savant, something savant. Anyway, he had a Google Plus room, and I had been notified that there were people talking about me, which I really couldn't care less. But anyway, mostly. As long as they're not lying about me. Anyway, so I went into the room when I got around to it, and it was okay. They were talking about ghosts and some sort of other nonsense, and so it was just like, okay, they obviously had changed the subject, so fine. And so there was something, I don't know, some guy in there anyway, and they were talking about randomness, and so I threw in my 2 cents after I, said hi to Chicky Poo, and so begins some sort of conversation about my theory of physics, right? So the guy just starts ragging on how I don't have credentials to make any, apparently I can't make any points regarding anything, regarding chemistry or biology or physics, because somehow I'm not qualified. I don't have some seal of approval badges or anything. I don't have any badges. Yeah, and so anyway, so the conversation just got distracted by this. It just became, the whole thing was just him analyzing again the messenger, like somehow the messenger has something to do with the message. And this comes up now and then, and you're just like, how is it ever relevant? If somebody makes a point about a subject, if they say, knife collecting sucks. It just creates a potential threat to civilization. And yet they own 5,000 knives. So what? Even if that were true, who cares? Even if they were wife beaters, who cares? It's not, you have to deal with the point somebody's making, not who's making it. And, so it's just kind of silly, right? So I have a channel called Draft Science, and 4 years ago, so the only thing the guys write about is that I found quantum theory as described by Copenhagen interpretations and the like, multiverses, string theory, all these bizarre explanations. And certainly the standard Dr. Quantum style descriptions of what's happening in our universe to be ludicrous, especially this whole photons can read our minds and they can tell when we're looking at them, and all these eccentric and bizarre interpretations of the Heisenberg thing. I don't even know what it is. It's not a law. It's not even a principle, in my opinion. It's just some sort of accusation. It's all it is. It's an assumption, assumed to be true. Which basically says, you can't know a photon's location and its trajectory at the same time because it doesn't have any. Not because our instruments aren't capable of doing it. No, it doesn't have any. Okay, it can't be measured because it loses it. It becomes some sort of amorphous, non-existent thing. If you're able to know one thing, location, then you can't possibly know where it's going. And if you know where it's going, you can't possibly know where it's located, which doesn't make any sense anyway, because, how could you know where it's going if you don't know where it is? But anyway, it's neither here nor there. It's critical to this whole slop. So anyway, the point is that there was a whole bunch of this stuff I didn't like. It sounded like Santa Claus story. It sounded like a religion. It sounded like absolute nonsense. And so 4 years ago or so, I started researching when time was available, and I would watch lectures on physics and two-slit experiments demonstrated and read the documentation for how it was done and all that kind of stuff when you can get any, which is rare. few scientists, provide much detail in terms of the real, what happened when they ran their experiments. They love to publish their conclusions, but they don't really like to publish the evidence. Anyway, so whatever, a few months ago, I concluded, I realized that, wait a minute, there's another way to explain this as a particle field. And so I started playing with that diagram of converting gravity and light into particles, and then explaining, well, yeah, the particles just have a frequency. And so I started seeing light as just being these discrete bits separated by distance, and that's what we call a photon, 2 of them. And I took all the magic out of it, because I wanted to see what happens if you take all the magic out of the photons and you reduce them to something simpler. And in doing that, I realized not only is that doable in terms of maintaining the integrity of physics, what we do know about it, but that if you added this other component of these photons that don't have a frequency, that you could make gravity out of them. And so anyway, I made that argument to start with. And somebody directed me to this Lesage theory that's 200 years old, that at the time I didn't know anything about. And, that's basically a particle gravity theory that was rejected numerous times since its initial publication, for different reasons. They could create a thermodynamic problem, it would cause a drag problem, and so I said, oh, well, that's a little bit disturbing, but it didn't take much thinking about those problems, the things used to critique it, to realize they weren't analyzing it as it exists on the level that it exists on. They're not, they're thinking about it like it's in this world with friction and gravity, and it's a world where there is no friction, and the gravity is the particles. The energy is the particles. They can't transfer mass, and they can't transfer velocity, because they only go one speed. Photons go one speed, the speed of light. Quanta move one speed. And they can only be in some other speed as part of some matter where they're orbiting, cycling. And that cycling will give them the illusion of moving slower. So anyway, and of course they can move through a medium where they're being absorbed and readmitted, and that can give the illusion that they have slowed down, when they in fact haven't slowed down, they've just bounced off of a lot of stuff. So, that's sort of just the history of this. And so as I started developing the theory further and further, I kept falling on the fact that new things fit. Time dilation, for example. And so it just became more and more inclusive, and then I decided, well, this isn't a light theory or a gravity theory. I've got unification. There it is. It's a unifying theory, because I connected it to magnetism and electricity. So not only did I connect it to magnetism and electricity, it also connects to time dilation. So it's basically describing a very profoundly fundamental fact that essentially all forces, as we describe a force, are quantum manifestations. They're exchanges of quanta, the movement of quanta, the migration of it from one thing, one area, to another area. So magnetism is photons, quanta, gravitons, whatever you want to call them, magnetons, radiating, and they're doing the pushing. And the ones on the outside that create the illusion of a pull are the ones on the outside creating the illusion of a pull. It means that less are being pushed in the inside to create pull, and the push out, the rejection, is a push from the interior. It's always a push, and it's always an increase of the, okay, now, yeah, the ones that are, there's an increase in the quanta, the specific matter is tuned to. So that was another point about this whole frequency thing, is that frequency of light, the whole electromagnetic spectrum is basically defined by frequencies, and being to know something exists, you have to be able to tune to the frequency, like a radio gets tuned in. You don't pick up the other frequencies, even though there can be millions of them, literally. You only pick up the one that has the right spacing, but all the others still exist. But you can't detect them all at once. You can only detect a range of them with instrumentality in most cases. So anyway, enough. Going for a run. I forgot I'm supposed to run back there, so I'll have to run here. Anyway, so till later and such. I'm back. Anyway, yeah, the sun goes out when I'm done working. Anyway, so yeah, so I guess we're back to this whole argument, argue the argument kind of thing, and how these troll types don't really want to do that. And part of it is my own reaction. I just don't like people lying, concerning me, and sort of comes to that. They just make accusations. They don't back them up with any evidence. They just make them, and then you're forced to defend yourself. And I guess this works as a tactic, right? It's, always keep the other guy on the defensive. Attack, attack, attack in every premise, in every statement. And, whatever. And not be on the subject. Again, attacking me for the fact that I don't have a physics degree, or, yeah, I'm not respectable. So what? I just don't see any point to it. And what's his advice? His advice is, for his non-authoritative advice, on how to properly publish scientific theories. He has no expertise, no knowledge whatsoever, and certainly has nothing to say regarding the internet age and how it's probably changed the whole idea of these exclusive clubs of elitists deciding for everybody else what the truth is. Frankly, that doesn't have to be reality anymore. And that's probably why they got on the wrong track in the first place. They just established these icons of the business, and whatever they said was gold. And even when it didn't sound quite right or look quite right, that was the best we got. And they kept saying that rather than trying to fix anything. So, whatever. It's not really a proper subject, I suppose. The how to argue on the internet argument. But I don't care. I guess I just I don't like when it gets personal. That's all. And I really shouldn't take things personally at all. That's the advice I give to other people. So I really shouldn't care if some raggy troll is talking shit. Go ahead, talk your shit. But yeah, you can't have a conversation because they just keep they keep saying it. Like I said, it's just you could watch there's no point in watching 4 hours of nonsense, especially when they're talking about ghosts. But, it's just this, you keep saying quit ad hominem attacking in your premises. Just try to make an argument that has something to do with the actual theory and not me. And he couldn't do it. But yeah, why should I accept insults in a conversation? I mean, I'm not going to have a civil conversation with some asshole making accusations in the premises of his questions. Oh yeah, I have some honest questions. Well, let's start off with, when you beat your wife and you know, it's like, no, that's not a premise. Make your accusations elsewhere, in some place where dishonesty is revered. Because I don't revere it. So anyway, Leaf is running up behind me. Leaf is coming. Anyway, let's see if there's anything else to say. General subject. So anyway, yeah, but this is just kind of, I think, interesting how, the more I play with this theory, it starts explaining more and more things, and everything starts to tie right together. And until I get some sort of decisive evidence, of something that can't be explained, that's that creates some sort of impossible hurdle. And these really just aren't impossible hurdles. And I don't think I'm being unfair to say I would have expected better from Richard Feynman than his short shrift. His arguments against. He should have said, well, wait a minute, let's look at this and see if we can make it work. Let's see if there's some way, kinetic interactions can take place, without there being heat transfers and this and that. And he just didn't try. He wanted to dismiss it. He wanted to just show how, no, Einstein's right, this has got to be wrong. And so he just didn't do any work. And I don't know, is it wrong for me to say that I find that disappointing in somebody who was supposed to be this open-minded, let's think about it, let's talk about it. I should just replay the clips a few times. But there are these clips where you're just saying, this guy isn't what people think he is. I mean, yeah, he's a nice guy, but he did have an inflated ego. He did basically say to everyone else, don't bother thinking about it. I thought about it, and I can't figure it out, so you can't. That's basically his statement. And everybody wasn't insulted by that. But that's a pretty insulting statement. Me and Einstein thought about it, we didn't figure it out, so you can't. Essentially what he said. Effectively how he thought. And you sort of expect better. You sort of expect a challenge and just say, maybe you can do it, and let's talk about it, let's hear it. But, they just kind of closed the door on that conversation. So anyway, there's so many little coincidences here that just add credibility to this thing. I mean, just the idea that I came up with a particle theory that somebody else had already come up with 200 years ago. It seems, there might be something to it as a way of explaining gravity and essentially all the other forces. The fact that all the other forces function based on the same speed of light, inverse square rules, should just tell people something. They should be saying to them, maybe these are all one force. Maybe it's all made of one thing. I'm just surprised it didn't say that to more physicists. But anyway, we'll see how it all plays out and such. But really, I shouldn't have to waste my time just defending myself against my lack of badges. Why should I spend hours doing it? Why? Yes, okay, I'm not an authorized physicist. You don't think I'm knowledgeable. You can go ahead and think I'm not knowledgeable, but fuck you. I have to take tests to prove something to these assholes? It's just bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit is what it is. Nobody with any self-respect would accept being treated like that. Certainly none of his authorities would do that. And they've made real mistakes. They've said things that are wrong. No one's called them on it. So, whatever, doesn't really matter. That's the other thing, is they have this thing where I should say, I believe Einstein was wrong, instead of saying, I think Einstein got it wrong. You know, all this semantics where you're just like, oh yeah, that's a huge difference. You know. Yeah, whatever. I shall surrender and just say, fuck it, I'll just pretend last night didn't happen and move right along. It's the easiest solution. Until next time and such. So forth and whatnot. Yeah, it's probably enough. Crunchy leaves coming anyway. I wish I had more energy. Man, this weather is really tough. Look at all that white shit. Man, this isn't exactly secure. Yeah. Not very tall one either. I think that one's better. I think I'm going to move that one down to that end. Anyway, I believe I'm done. Yeah, oh, that's right, I was finished. Pulled a nail off my lousy cruddy finger today. Just part of it. But you know, it's just that, the end all raw and shit. Yeah. But, you know, I can do the bright side thing where, well, at least it's not that Warble's kid thumb in the gears thing. Ugh. It looks like they fixed it pretty well. So, you know, got lucky. Anyway, so yeah, till next time. Such, so forth and whatnot.